In August 2019, four young Americans embarked on what was supposed to be a 3-week backpacking adventure through Southeast Asia. According to their families, the group consisted of Jessica Martinez, 23, a recent journalism graduate from UCLA, Michael Chen, 24, an engineering student from MIT, Sarah Williams, 22, who had just completed her psychology degree at University of Texas, and David Thompson, 25, a medical student taking a gap year before his residency. The four had met during a study abroad program in Thailand 2 years earlier and maintained their friendship through social media and occasional visits. According to Jessica's mother, Maria Martinez, the trip had been planned for over 8 months. Jessica saved every penny from her part-time job at the campus newspaper, Martinez stated in a 2020 interview with local media. She was so excited about this adventure. They all were. The group had purchased their tickets in January 2019 and spent months researching destinations, booking hostels, and coordinating their schedules. Flight records show the four departed Los Angeles International Airport on August 15, 2019, with connecting flights through Tokyo before arriving in Bangkok on August 17. Immigration documents from Thailand confirmed their entry into the country that same day. According to credit card statements later reviewed by investigators, the group spent their first week in Bangkok, staying at the Lub D hostel in the Selam district and visiting typical tourist destinations, including the Grand Palace and Wat Pho Temple. Sarah Williams's father, Robert Williams, received the last communication from his daughter on August 24, 2019. "She sent me a text saying they were taking a bus to Cambodia the next day," Williams told police investigators. She seemed excited about seeing Angkor Wat. Phone records confirm this was the final message sent from Williams's device. Similar final communications were received by the other families between August 24 and 25, all indicating the group's plan to cross into Cambodia. Border crossing records at the Poipet checkpoint confirm all four Americans entered Cambodia on August 25, 2019, at approximately 2:30 p.m. local time. According to the Cambodian Ministry of Tourism, they had purchased standard tourist visas valid for 30 days. Security camera footage from the border crossing, later reviewed by investigators, shows the four carrying standard backpacking equipment and appearing in good spirits. The group's initial days in Cambodia followed a predictable tourist pattern. Credit card transactions show purchases at a guest house in Siem Reap on August 25 and 26, along with admission fees to the Angkor Archaeological Park. Local tour operator Sophia Meng, who runs Mekong Adventures, confirmed in police statements that he provided transportation for the four Americans on August 27 for a standard Angkor Wat tour. They were typical young tourists, Meng told investigators. They asked many questions about the temples and took many photographs. According to hotel records from the Golden Temple guest house in Siem Reap, the group checked out on August 28, 2019. The hotel manager, Peach Sofik, later told police that the Americans had inquired about jungle trekking opportunities. The girl with dark hair asked about places where not many tourists go. Sofik stated in his official testimony, "I told them about some areas near the Thai border, but I warned them these places need experienced guides." Local guide Chai Bunthoan, age 34, emerged as a key figure in the investigation. According to police interviews conducted in September 2019, Bunthoan had been approached by the four Americans at the Siem Reap night market on August 27. They wanted to see real jungle, not tourist places, Bunthoan told investigators. "I told them I could take them to areas near Preah Vihear province, but it would be difficult trek." Police records show Bunthoan had been working as an unofficial guide for 3 years, though he lacked proper certification from Cambodian tourism authorities. Mobile phone tower data, later analyzed by telecommunications company Cellcard, shows the group's phones were active in the Siem Reap area until August 29, 2019. The last confirmed GPS coordinates from their devices placed them approximately 15 kilometers northeast of Siem Reap, moving toward the Kulin Mountains region. After 3:45 p.m. on August 29, no further signal activity was recorded from any of their phones. Bunthoan initially told police the group had changed their minds about the jungle trek and decided to continue to Phnom Penh instead. However, Bus company records and hotel registrations showed no evidence of the Americans traveling to the capital city. When questioned again on September 5, 2019, Bunthoyun changed his account, claiming he had led the group to a starting point near Beng Mialia Temple, but they had decided to continue without him. I told them it was dangerous, but they wanted adventure, he stated in his revised testimony. The first missing persons report was filed by Michael Chen's parents on September 10, 2019, when their son failed to check in as planned. Michael always called us every few days when he traveled, his mother Linda Chen told investigators. When we didn't hear from him for 2 weeks, we knew something was wrong. The other families filed similar reports within 48 hours after being contacted by the Chen family. The United States Embassy in Phnom Penh officially requested Cambodian authorities to initiate a search on September 12, 2019. According to embassy records, Consul General Patricia Hammond personally coordinated with the Cambodian National Police and provincial authorities in Siem Reap. Initial search efforts focused on popular trekking routes and known tourist areas within a 50-kilometer radius of Siem Reap. Local Police Chief Colonel Mies Virak led the initial investigation, deploying 30 officers and volunteers to search jungle areas where the group was believed to have gone missing. We checked all the temples, villages, and known camping spots, Virak stated in his official report, dated September 20, 2019. We found no trace of the missing Americans or their equipment. The search was complicated by heavy seasonal rains and dense jungle terrain that limited helicopter reconnaissance flights. Guide Chai Bunthoyun was detained for questioning on September 18, 2019, but was released after 48 hours when investigators found insufficient evidence to charge him with any crime. His story kept changing, but we had no proof he harmed the tourists, Colonel Virak explained to embassy officials. Bunthoyun's mobile phone records showed he had been in the Siem Reap area during the relevant time frame, but GPS data was inconclusive about his exact locations. The families of the missing Americans arrived in Cambodia during the last week of September 2019. Maria Martinez, Jessica's mother, established a command post at the Golden Temple guest house and coordinated with local media to publicize the search efforts. We're not giving up until we find our children, Martinez told the Cambodia Daily newspaper on September 28, 2019. The families hired private investigator James Morrison, a former FBI agent specializing in international missing persons cases, to supplement official search efforts. Morrison's investigation, documented in reports filed with the U.S. Embassy, revealed several concerning details. Local villagers in the Kulin Mountains region reported seeing foreign backpackers in early September, but descriptions were inconsistent and timing was unclear. The challenge is that many tourists pass through these areas, Morrison noted in his October 15, 2019 report. Without specific identifying details, witness accounts become unreliable. By November 2019, official search operations had been scaled back due to budget constraints and the onset of dry season, which made jungle access more difficult. The case was transferred to the Cambodian National Police's Missing Persons Division in Phnom Penh, where it joined hundreds of similar files involving disappeared tourists and locals. Embassy officials maintained regular contact with investigators, but acknowledged the limitations of continuing active search efforts. The last significant development in the initial investigation occurred in December 2019, when villagers near the town of Beng Mialia reported finding torn fabric and plastic bottles in a remote area, approximately 30 kilometers from where the Americans were last known to be traveling. Police investigation of these items proved inconclusive. Laboratory analysis conducted in Phnom Penh could not definitively link the materials to the missing Americans, and no DNA evidence was recovered. As 2020 began, the case remained officially open but inactive. The four families maintained contact with embassy officials and continued to post updates on social media seeking information about their missing children. Private investigator Morrison concluded his contract in February 2020, citing exhausted leads and limited prospects for new developments. In his final report, he recommended the families consider the possibility that their children had encountered fatal circumstances in the dangerous jungle terrain. The COVID-19 pandemic effectively ended any remaining search efforts, as Cambodia closed its borders to international travel. and reallocated police resources to pandemic response. The case files were archived in the National Police Database, joining thousands of other unsolved disappearances across Southeast Asia. For 5 years, the families waited for any news about Jessica Martinez, Michael Chen, Sarah Williams, and David Thompson, not knowing that their ordeal was far from over. The disappearance of the 4 young Americans sent shockwaves through their families and communities back in the United States. By mid-September 2019, what had begun as concern over missed phone calls had escalated into a full-scale international missing persons investigation spanning 2 countries and multiple law enforcement agencies. Robert Williams, Sarah's father, first contacted the State Department on September 9, 2019, after his daughter failed to respond to multiple messages and emails. Sarah was very responsible about staying in touch, Williams told department officials during his initial call. She knew we worried about her traveling in remote areas. State Department records show Williams was initially advised to wait 48 hours, as communication delays were common among backpackers in Southeast Asia. The Chen family's response was more immediate. Linda Chen, Michael's mother, began calling hotels in Cambodia on September 8 when her son missed a scheduled video call. Michael was studying to be a doctor, she explained to investigators. He was methodical about everything, including keeping us informed about his travels. Chen contacted the UCLA alumni office, hoping to reach other students who might have travel information, but learned that none of Michael's classmates had heard from the group since late August. Maria Martinez discovered her daughter was missing through social media. Jessica had been regularly posting photos to Instagram throughout the trip, but her last post showed the group at Angkor Wat on August 28, 2019. Jessica posted something every day, Martinez told reporters in October 2019. When I saw no new photos for a week, I knew something was very wrong. Martinez's attempts to contact the Golden Temple guest house in Siem Reap initially yielded no information, as staff reported the group had checked out on schedule. The Thompson family learned of David's disappearance when Linda Chen contacted them on September 10th. David's parents, Richard and Susan Thompson, had been less worried because their son had always been independent during his travels. David sometimes went days without calling, Richard Thompson explained in police interviews. But when Mrs. Chen called us, we realized this was different. The Thompson family immediately began attempting to contact their son's credit card companies and banks to trace recent transactions. Embassy officials in Phnom Penh coordinated the family's initial response. Consul General Patricia Hammond established a crisis management protocol on September 12, 2019, after receiving formal missing persons reports from all 4 families. We immediately began working with Cambodian authorities to locate the missing Americans, Hammond stated in her official report to the State Department. The families were understandably frantic, and we needed to manage both their expectations and the investigation. The first major complication arose when investigators discovered the group's rental car had never been returned to the agency in Siem Reap. Budget car rental manager Soka Peach confirmed in police statements that a white Toyota Camry rented by Michael Chen was overdue as of August 30, 2019. We tried calling the phone number they provided, but it went straight to voicemail, Peach told investigators. GPS tracking on the vehicle showed it had been parked near the Beng Milea Temple complex since August 29th, but the car was found empty with no personal belongings inside. Local authorities initially treated the case as a routine missing persons investigation. Siem Reap Province Police Chief Mias Virik assigned Detective Lieutenant Chantha Sok to lead the investigation, but resources were limited. We see many tourists who get lost in jungle areas, Sok explained in his September 15th report. Usually they find their way back or local villagers help them. The initial search focused on established hiking trails and known camping areas within a 20-kilometer radius of where the rental car was found. The family's arrival in Cambodia on September 25, 2019, intensified the investigation significantly. Maria Martinez took charge of coordinating family efforts, establishing a makeshift command center at the Golden Temple guest house where the group had last stayed. "We're not going home without our children," Martinez told the Phnom Penh Post on September 27th. The families pooled resources to hire additional local guides and translators to supplement official search efforts. Private investigator James Morrison arrived in Siem Reap on October 1, 2019, hired by the families to provide expertise in international missing persons cases. Morrison's background included 15 years with the FBI and specialized experience in Southeast Asian investigations. The first 72 hours are critical in any missing persons case, Morrison explained to embassy officials. We were already well past that window, but there were still actionable leads to pursue. Morrison's investigation revealed concerning gaps in the official police work. His October 5th report noted that guide Chai Bunthoyun's statements contained significant inconsistencies, but local police had not conducted thorough follow-up interviews. Bunthoyun claimed he left the group at Bang Milia Temple, but villagers in that area reported no sightings of foreign tourists on August 29th, Morrison documented. His mobile phone data also showed movement patterns inconsistent with his stated timeline. The search expanded to include remote villages along the Thailand-Cambodia border, where local officials had reported occasional sightings of foreign backpackers. Village Chief Meng Sophia in Choam Kasant district told investigators his community had seen 4 young foreigners in early September, but could not provide specific dates or descriptions. Many tourists pass through here, Sophia explained through translators. They usually stay one night and continue to Thailand. Media attention intensified the investigation's urgency. The story gained national coverage in the United States when CNN International reported on the case in mid-October 2019. The segment, titled, "4 Americans Vanish in Cambodian Jungle," brought international pressure on Cambodian authorities to expand search efforts. Tourism officials worried about negative publicity affecting Cambodia's growing backpacker industry, which had become increasingly important to the national economy. The families organized volunteer search parties composed of other tourists, local guides, and expatriates living in Cambodia. These civilian efforts covered areas that official searches had not reached, including remote temple complexes and abandoned villages. However, the volunteer searches yielded no significant evidence. "We walked through jungle for hours every day," said volunteer searcher Mark Stevens, an Australian teacher working in Siem Reap. "The terrain is incredibly dense, and without proper equipment, it's easy to miss important clues." Financial records provided the investigation's most concrete timeline. Credit card statements showed Michael Chen had withdrawn cash from an ATM in Siem Reap on August 28th, the same day Jessica Martinez had posted her last Instagram photo. No financial activity occurred after August 29th for any of the 4 missing Americans. The complete cessation of financial activity suggests something happened very quickly, Morrison noted in his October 15th report. Either they lost access to their cards, or they encountered a situation that prevented them from using them. Local hospitals and medical facilities were contacted to determine if the group had sought treatment for injuries or illnesses. Dr. Rithi Chan at Siem Reap Provincial Hospital confirmed that no foreign patients matching the Americans' descriptions had been admitted during the relevant time frame. "We always keep careful records of foreign patients because of insurance requirements," Dr. Chan told investigators. "None of the missing tourists came to our facility." The search effort faced significant logistical challenges. Seasonal rains made many jungle areas inaccessible to search teams, and the dense forest canopy limited the effectiveness of aerial reconnaissance. Royal Cambodian Air Force helicopter pilot Major Pisak Kong conducted multiple search flights but reported no visual evidence of the missing tourists or their equipment. "The jungle is very thick in that region," Kong explained. "Even large groups can be completely hidden from aerial view." By November 2019, the investigation had reached a critical impasse. Despite extensive searches covering hundreds of square kilometers, no physical evidence of the 4 Americans had been discovered. Guide Chai Bunthoyun underwent additional questioning, but maintained his modified account that he had last seen the group near Bang Mielia Temple. Polygraph testing was requested by the families, but was deemed inadmissible under Cambodian law. The families faced mounting financial pressure to return to the United States. Robert Williams, Sarah's father, had exhausted his savings and taken unpaid leave from his job as a high school principal. "We can't afford to stay much longer," Williams admitted to embassy officials in November. "But we can't bear the thought of leaving without answers." The families organized fundraising efforts through social media and local community groups to extend their stay in Cambodia. Embassy officials worked to maintain diplomatic pressure on Cambodian authorities while managing the families' expectations about realistic outcomes. Consul General Hammond met weekly with Colonel Vierick to review investigation progress, but acknowledged in her reports to Washington that leads were becoming scarce. The Cambodian police have been cooperative, but they lack resources for extended search operations, Hammond noted in a November 20th cable to the State Department. The last significant development in 2019 occurred when villagers near Beng Mielia reported finding personal items in a remote area. The discovery included torn fabric, plastic water bottles, and what appeared to be pages from a guidebook. Police evidence teams collected the materials, but initial analysis proved inconclusive. The items were too degraded by weather to yield useful DNA evidence, forensic specialist Dr. Mayas Bunroong explained in his official report. As 2019 ended, the families reluctantly returned to the United States while maintaining pressure on both American and Cambodian officials to continue the investigation. Maria Martinez organized a social media campaign using the hashtag #ChachuFindOur4, which gained thousands of followers and kept the case in public attention. "We won't stop looking for them," Martinez pledged in a December 30th Facebook post. "Somewhere out there, our children need us to keep fighting." The case was transferred to the Cambodian National Police Cold Case Division in January 2020, where it joined hundreds of similar unsolved disappearances. Detective Lieutenant Sok continued periodic reviews of the evidence, but acknowledged that new leads were unlikely without additional witness testimony or physical evidence. Private investigator Morrison concluded his contract with a final report recommending the families consider hiring local contacts to monitor for any future developments. The COVID-19 pandemic effectively halted all remaining investigation efforts in March 2020. Cambodia's border closure prevented family visits, and police resources were redirected to pandemic response. The four families maintained virtual contact through weekly video calls, sharing any information they received, and supporting each other through the ongoing uncertainty. For the next 5 years, they would wait in agonizing silence, not knowing that their nightmare was far from over. On March 15, 2024, exactly 4 years, 6 months, and 15 days after the four Americans disappeared into the Cambodian jungle, a malnourished and disoriented young man stumbled out of the forest near the village of An Long Veng, approximately 200 kilometers north of where the group was last seen. Local villagers immediately recognized him as a foreigner and contacted authorities, but none could have predicted the international implications of this discovery. Village Chief Nem Soka was the first official to encounter the survivor. He was very thin, and his hair was very long, Soka told police investigators the following day. He spoke English but also some Khmer words. "We gave him water and rice, but he seemed afraid of everything." The man carried no identification and initially refused to provide his name or explain how he had arrived in the remote border region. An Long Veng District Police Chief Captain Ko Pisach arrived at the village within 3 hours of being notified. According to his official report, the survivor appeared to be in his mid-20s, approximately 6 feet tall, with extensive scarring on his arms and legs, consistent with prolonged exposure to jungle conditions. His physical condition suggested he had been living in primitive circumstances for an extended period, Pisak documented. He was approximately 30 pounds underweight and showed signs of chronic malnutrition. The breakthrough came when District Medical Officer Dr. Chea Sofip examined the survivor and noticed a distinctive tattoo on his left shoulder. The tattoo depicted the MIT engineering logo, which Dr. Sofip recognized from his own education in the United States. When questioned about the tattoo, the survivor whispered his name, Michael Chen. Dr. Sofip immediately contacted the U.S. Embassy in Phnom Penh, triggering a diplomatic response that would reach Washington within hours. Embassy Medical Officer Dr. Patricia Williams arrived in An Long Veng on March 16th, accompanied by psychiatric specialist Dr. James Morrison and 2 consular officials. Dr. Williams's initial medical evaluation confirmed the survivor's identity through dental records that had been provided by the Chen family in 2019. There was no doubt this was Michael Chen, Dr. Williams stated in her classified report to the State Department. However, his psychological condition was extremely concerning. Chen's mental state presented immediate challenges for investigators. According to Dr. Morrison's preliminary psychiatric assessment, the survivor exhibited symptoms consistent with severe post-traumatic stress disorder, including dissociative episodes, hypervigilance, and selective memory loss. Patient displays extreme anxiety when questioned about recent experiences, Dr. Morrison documented. He frequently loses focus mid-sentence and appears to be responding to stimuli that are not present. The first coherent information from Chen came during his third day in medical care. Speaking to Dr. Morrison in fragmented sentences, Chen confirmed he had been part of the group that disappeared in 2019. When asked about Jessica Martinez, Sarah Williams, and David Thompson, Chen's responses became agitated and incoherent. He kept repeating, "They couldn't make it," and "the rules were different there," Dr. Morrison noted. When pressed for specifics, he would become non-responsive or request to stop the interview. News of Chen's reappearance reached the families on March 17, 2024, through calls from State Department officials. Linda Chen, Michael's mother, received the call at her home in Los Angeles at 6:30 a.m. Pacific time. "I thought it was a cruel joke at first," she told reporters later that day. "We had grieved for our son. We had memorial services. To hear he was alive after 5 years was impossible to process." The Chen family immediately began arrangements to travel to Cambodia. The other 3 families experienced a complex mix of hope and anguish upon learning of Chen's survival. Maria Martinez, Jessica's mother, told CNN that while she was grateful Michael was alive, his return without the others filled her with dread about her daughter's fate. "If Michael survived, why didn't Jessica? What happened to our children out there?" Martinez asked during a March 18 television interview that was broadcast internationally. Chen's medical treatment revealed additional disturbing details about his condition. Hospital records from the American Medical Center in Phnom Penh, where he was transferred on March 19th, documented numerous old injuries including improperly healed bone fractures, extensive scar tissue, and evidence of chronic infections. The patient's medical history suggests prolonged exposure to harsh conditions with limited or no medical care, Chief Physician Dr. Robert Kim noted in his assessment. The survivor's behavior during medical treatment raised questions among staff and investigators. Chen exhibited an extreme fear of being left alone and insisted on keeping crude tools fashioned from jungle materials near his bed. Nursing staff reported he would frequently check windows and doors and refused to eat any food he had not watched being prepared. His survival instincts appeared to be permanently activated, psychological consultant Dr. Sarah Park observed. He behaved as if he expected immediate danger at all times. Chen's first detailed interview with law enforcement occurred on March 22, 2024, conducted by FBI Special Agent David Russell, who had been flown in from the Bangkok field office. The interview, lasting 4 hours with frequent breaks, was recorded with Chen's consent and the presence of his embassy-provided attorney. According to the classified FBI report later shared with the families, Chen's account of the 5-year period contained significant gaps and inconsistencies. According to Chen's initial statement to Agent Russell, the 4 Americans had indeed entered deep jungle areas with guide Chai Bunthoyun in late August 2019. However, Chen claimed that Bunthoyun had led them much farther from established tourist areas than originally planned. Michael stated they walked for 3 days before reaching what he described as a different kind of place, Agent Russell documented. When asked to elaborate, the subject became visibly distressed and requested to end the interview. The survivor's account of what happened to his 3 companions proved even more problematic for investigators. Chen claimed that Sarah Williams had become ill in the early weeks after their disappearance and had gone to sleep and not woken up. Regarding Jessica Martinez and David Thompson, Chen's responses became increasingly agitated. He kept saying they chose differently and followed the wrong path, Agent Russell noted. When pressed for specifics about their current location or condition, Chen would repeat, "The jungle keeps its own." Cambodian authorities reopened the 2019 investigation immediately upon Chen's identification. Colonel Mies Vierik, who had led the original search efforts, was brought out of retirement to coordinate with international investigators. "We always hoped we would find the missing tourists. Virik told the press on March 23rd. But finding only one alive after 5 years raises many new questions about what happened in the jungle. Chen's family arrived in Phnom Penh on March 24, 2024, for an emotional reunion that was documented by embassy staff, but kept private from media attention. Linda Chen later described the meeting to close friends as both joyful and heartbreaking. "He looked at us like he wasn't sure we were real," she confided to family attorney James Park. "Our son survived something terrible, but he's not the same person who left us 5 years ago." The medical team's analysis of Chen's condition provided clues about his survival circumstances. Tropical disease specialist Dr. Meng Pisach found evidence that Chen had contracted and recovered from multiple serious illnesses, including malaria and dengue fever, without medical treatment. His immune system shows adaptation patterns consistent with prolonged exposure to tropical pathogens, Dr. Pisach explained. This suggests he developed natural resistance through repeated exposure over years. Chen's knowledge of local plant life and jungle survival techniques amazed medical staff and investigators. During his hospital stay, he demonstrated detailed understanding of which jungle plants were edible, how to construct shelter from natural materials, and techniques for finding clean water in remote areas. His survival skills were extraordinary, Embassy Medical Officer Dr. Williams noted. He had clearly learned to live as part of the jungle ecosystem. The survivor's reluctance to discuss specific locations where he had spent the past 5 years frustrated search efforts for the other 3 Americans. When shown maps of the border region, Chen would point to general areas but refused to provide precise coordinates. He kept saying the places moved around and weren't always there, Agent Russell documented. His responses suggested either severe psychological trauma or deliberate evasion. Polygraph testing requested by the FBI yielded inconclusive results due to Chen's psychological condition. Dr. Morrison's report explained that trauma-induced stress responses made it impossible to distinguish between deception and post-traumatic reactions. The subject's neurological responses are consistent with someone who has experienced severe psychological trauma, Dr. Morrison concluded. Standard polygraph protocols are not applicable in this case. By April 2024, Chen's physical health had stabilized sufficiently to allow his return to the United States with his family. However, his psychological treatment would require years of specialized therapy. The other families faced the agonizing reality that Chen's return provided few concrete answers about their missing children's fate. Private investigator Morrison, hired again by the families, began analyzing Chen's statements for clues about possible search locations. Chen's reappearance generated intense media attention, with major news networks providing daily coverage of developments in the case. The story captured international attention, partly because of the mysterious 5-year gap and Chen's fragmented explanations of his survival. Speculation ranged from theories about hidden jungle communities to suggestions that Chen had been held against his will by unknown parties. The Cambodian government faced renewed pressure to expand search efforts for the 3 remaining missing Americans. Tourism Minister Dr. Thong Khon announced the deployment of additional resources to comb jungle areas where Chen suggested he might have encountered his former companions. However, the vast and remote nature of the border region made systematic searching extremely difficult. Guide Chai Buntoyun, who had been questioned extensively in 2019, was brought in for additional interviews following Chen's return. Buntoan maintained his original account that he had left the group at Bang Mialea Temple, but investigators noted discrepancies between his story and Chen's statements about their route into the deep jungle. Buntoan's account doesn't align with the survivors' description of their initial journey, Colonel Virek admitted to embassy officials. As spring 2024 progressed, the investigation entered a new phase focused on analyzing Chen's cryptic statements for actionable intelligence about the fate of Jessica Martinez, Sarah Williams, and David Thompson. The families clung to hope that Chen's survival meant the others might also be alive, but his disturbing references to his companions' different choices suggested a darker reality awaited discovery in the depths of the Cambodian jungle. On June 8, 2024, after weeks of intensive psychological therapy and careful preparation, Michael Chen finally provided investigators with a complete account of what had happened during his 5 years in the Cambodian jungle. The revelation would expose a criminal network that had operated in the remote border regions for decades, preying on tourists and locals alike, while remaining hidden from authorities. The breakthrough came during Chen's 15th therapy session with Dr. Sarah Park at the UCLA Medical Center, where he had been receiving treatment since returning to the United States. According to Dr. Park's clinical notes, Chen had gradually recovered suppressed memories through specialized trauma therapy techniques. The patient exhibited classic symptoms of dissociative amnesia, Dr. Park documented. His mind had compartmentalized traumatic experiences as a survival mechanism. Chen's detailed statement, recorded on June 10, 2024, in the presence of FBI Special Agent David Russell and his attorney, revealed that guide Chai Bunthawun had deliberately led the four Americans into remote jungle areas where illegal logging operations were taking place. Bunthawun told us we were going to see untouched forest that tourists never visited, Chen stated in his sworn testimony. We didn't realize he was taking us to a work camp. According to Chen's account, the group had encountered the illegal logging operation on their third day in the jungle, approximately 50 kilometers northeast of where their rental car was later found. The operation was run by a network of criminals who used forced labor to harvest valuable hardwood trees from protected forest areas. There were maybe 30 people working there, Chen testified. Some looked like locals, but others looked like they had been there against their will for a long time. The logging camp supervisor, identified by Chen only as a man called Boss Nareth, had made it clear that the four Americans posed a threat to the operation's secrecy. Chen testified that Bunthawun had been paid to bring tourists to the camp, where they would be forced to work or face consequences. Bunthawun wasn't just a guide, Chen explained to investigators. He was recruiting people for the operation. He had done this before. Chen's testimony revealed the horrific conditions at the logging camp, where workers lived in makeshift shelters and received minimal food and medical care. The operation moved frequently to avoid detection by authorities, using portable equipment that could be quickly relocated when enforcement agencies conducted aerial surveillance. They knew exactly when helicopters would fly over certain areas, Chen stated. Someone was giving them information about police activities. The survivors at the camp included individuals from multiple countries who had disappeared over several years. Chen testified about meeting a German backpacker who had been missing for 3 years, 2 Australian travelers who had vanished in 2018, and numerous Cambodian and Vietnamese workers who had been trafficked to the site. People would arrive and never leave, Chen told investigators. The supervisors made it clear that escape attempts would result in severe consequences. The fate of Chen's 3 companions became clear through his painful testimony. Sarah Williams had contracted severe malaria within 2 weeks of their arrival at the camp and died despite Chen's attempts to care for her with limited medical supplies. Sarah was burning with fever for days, Chen told investigators. I begged them to get her real medicine, but they said bringing a doctor would expose the operation. David Thompson had attempted to escape from the logging camp after Williams's death, but was recaptured and severely beaten by camp supervisors. According to Chen's testimony, Thompson died from his injuries 3 days later. David was a medical student, Chen explained. He knew Sarah could have been saved with proper treatment. He couldn't accept that we were just going to be left there to work until we died. Jessica Martinez's fate was the most difficult part of Chen's testimony. According to his account, Martinez had initially adapted to camp conditions and helped care for other workers who became ill or injured. However, after approximately 6 months, she had been transferred to a different location when the logging operation was restructured. They said she would be more useful elsewhere, Chen testified. I never saw her again, but I heard she was taken to a place near the Thai border. Chen's survival strategy had involved making himself indispensable to the operation. His engineering background allowed him to repair equipment and improve the efficiency of the logging processes, which earned him better treatment and more freedom within the camp. I realized that fighting them would get me killed like David, Chen explained. So I made myself valuable and waited for a chance to escape. The logging operation functioned as part of a larger criminal enterprise that included multiple revenue streams. Chen testified that the camps also served as transit points for drug smuggling operations, moving methamphetamines and other substances between Cambodia and Thailand. Workers were sometimes forced to carry packages across border areas with severe consequences for those who refused or were caught by authorities. Chen described a complex hierarchy within the criminal organization, with Boss Narith answering to higher-level supervisors who would visit the camps monthly to collect proceeds and issue new instructions. These supervisors traveled between multiple camps spread across hundreds of kilometers of remote jungle, coordinating activities and moving workers between locations as needed. The opportunity for escape came in early 2024, when the logging operation was disrupted by increased enforcement pressure from joint Cambodian-Thai border patrols. Chen testified that during the confusion of relocating the camp, he had managed to slip away into the jungle during a nighttime move. "I had been planning my escape route for years," Chen told investigators. "I knew which direction would take me toward villages where I could find help." Chen's escape had been facilitated by his relationship with other prisoners at the camp, including a Vietnamese man named Duke, who had been teaching him jungle survival techniques. Duke had been planning his own escape for 2 years, Chen explained. "He taught me which plants were safe to eat, how to find clean water, and how to avoid the patrols that looked for escaped workers." The journey from the logging camp to the village where Chen was discovered had taken 3 weeks of careful travel through dense jungle terrain. Chen testified that he had avoided established paths and village areas, surviving on foraged plants and rainwater, while moving primarily at night. "I knew they would send people to look for me," he explained. "I had to assume every person I encountered might report back to the organization." Chen's testimony provided investigators with detailed information about the locations and methods of the illegal logging network. FBI Special Agent Russell coordinated with Cambodian authorities to plan raids on suspected camp locations based on Chen's descriptions. "The survivors' information gives us our first real intelligence about this criminal network," Agent Russell stated in his briefing to embassy officials. The international law enforcement response was swift and coordinated. On July 15, 2024, joint operations involving Cambodian police, Thai border patrol units, and observers from the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration raided 3 suspected logging camps in remote areas near the Cambodia-Thailand border. The operations resulted in the arrest of 47 individuals and the liberation of 23 workers who had been held in conditions of forced labor. One of the raided locations, approximately 30 kilometers from where Chen had emerged from the jungle, yielded crucial evidence supporting his testimony. Investigators found makeshift graves containing remains that forensic analysis would later confirm belonged to multiple individuals who had died at the camp over several years. Among the evidence recovered were personal items, including a UCLA-class ring that matched the description of one owned by Sarah Williams. The raids also led to the arrest of Chahai Bunthoyun, who was found at a logging camp near the Thai border. Under questioning, Bunthoyun admitted to his role in bringing tourists to the illegal operations, but claimed he had been threatened with violence if he refused to cooperate. Bunthoyun has provided information about other missing tourists who may have been brought to these camps, Colonel Virik announced at a July 20th press conference. Further investigation revealed the scope of the criminal network extended far beyond illegal logging. Authorities discovered evidence of human trafficking operations that had been using the remote camps as transit points for moving people across international borders. Some workers had been held for years, while others had been sold to different operations throughout Southeast Asia. The liberated workers provided additional testimony that corroborated Chen's account of conditions at the camps. Medical examinations revealed evidence of chronic malnutrition, untreated injuries, and psychological trauma consistent with prolonged forced labor. Several workers required immediate hospitalization, while others needed extensive rehabilitation services. Thai authorities launched parallel investigations based on intelligence provided by the Cambodian raids. Several suspected camp locations on the Thai side of the border were identified through satellite imagery analysis, leading to additional arrests and the liberation of more forced labor victims. The cross-border nature of the operation required unprecedented cooperation between law enforcement agencies in both countries. The recovery of Jessica Martinez remained the investigation's primary focus following the successful raids. Chen's information about her transfer to a location near the Thai border led to expanded search efforts involving multiple law enforcement agencies. Thai police reported several potential leads, but none had been confirmed by August 2024. Investigators discovered that the criminal network had been operating with sophisticated counter-surveillance measures, including the use of satellite phones for encrypted communications and carefully planned routes that avoided areas with cellular tower coverage. The organization had also established relationships with corrupt officials who provided advance warning of enforcement operations. DNA analysis of remains found at the raided camps confirmed the identities of Sarah Williams and David Thompson in September 2024. The Chen family received official notification that their son's testimony had been accurate, and that his two friends had indeed died in the logging camps as he described. Formal death certificates were issued, allowing their families to begin the process of closure after 5 years of uncertainty. The forensic investigation at the campsites revealed evidence of systematic disposal of deceased workers in unmarked graves throughout the jungle areas. Ground-penetrating radar surveys identified numerous burial sites, suggesting that dozens of individuals had died at the camps over the years. Recovery efforts were complicated by the remote locations and dense jungle terrain. The legal proceedings against the arrested suspects began in October 2024, with Chen serving as the prosecution's primary witness. His testimony in Cambodian court provided detailed evidence of the forced labor conditions, the deaths of tourists and local workers, and the network's methods for avoiding detection by authorities. Defense attorneys attempted to discredit Chen's account by citing his psychological trauma, but physical evidence from the camps corroborated his statements. The investigation revealed systematic corruption that had allowed the illegal operations to continue for years. Several local officials were arrested on charges of accepting bribes to ignore the logging activities and provide advance warning of enforcement operations. The corruption network included police officers, forestry officials, and border guards who had been paid to facilitate the criminal activities. Banking records subpoenaed during the investigation revealed that the logging operation had generated millions of dollars in illegal revenue over the past decade. The money had been laundered through a complex network of shell companies and offshore accounts, with proceeds used to purchase equipment, pay bribes, and expand operations to new areas. International attention focused on the broader implications of the case for tourist safety in Southeast Asia. The State Department issued updated travel advisories, warning American citizens about the risks of using unlicensed guides in remote areas. Tourism officials in Cambodia implemented new registration requirements for guides and increased patrols in jungle areas popular with backpackers. Michael Chen's recovery continued throughout 2024, though doctors warned that his psychological healing would take years. His testimony had provided closure for the Williams and Thompson families, while keeping hope alive for the Martinez family that Jessica might still be found alive. Michael's courage in coming forward has exposed a criminal network that destroyed many lives, Maria Martinez stated in a December 2024 interview. We pray that his information will help us find Jessica. The case sparked international cooperation agreements between Cambodia, Thailand, and other Southeast Asian nations to combat cross-border criminal networks that exploit vulnerable tourists and workers. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime cited the investigation as a model for addressing human trafficking in remote border regions. Advanced technology was deployed in the search for additional camp locations and missing persons. Satellite imagery analysis revealed dozens of suspicious clearings in remote jungle areas that matched the patterns of illegal logging operations. Drone surveillance missions were conducted to investigate these locations while minimizing risk to search personnel. By the end of 2024, the search for Jessica Martinez continued with renewed focus on locations near the Thai border, where Chen believed she had been taken. Intelligence gathered from arrested suspects provided new leads about trafficking routes used to move workers between different operations, raising hopes that Martinez might still be alive at another location. The criminal trials of the logging network operators were scheduled to begin in early 2025, with prosecutors seeking severe sentences for those responsible for the deaths and forced labor violations. Chen's testimony would be crucial to securing convictions, though legal experts noted that proving the full extent of the network's activities would require extensive investigation and international cooperation. Environmental impact assessments revealed that the illegal logging operations had caused extensive damage to protected forest areas, destroying habitat for endangered species and disrupting local ecosystems. The Cambodian government announced plans for reforestation efforts funded by seized assets from the criminal network. The case served as a stark reminder of the dangers faced by adventure tourists in remote areas and the sophisticated criminal networks that operate beyond the reach of traditional law enforcement. For the families involved, Chen's survival and testimony provided some answers, while highlighting the ongoing tragedy of Jessica Martinez's unknown fate and the preventable deaths of Sarah Williams and David Thompson in the depths of the Cambodian jungle.